everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we have a full long painting process video of a still life painting that I actually sketched out a few weeks ago in my sketchbook, and I decided, you know what, I haven't painted with oils in a while. I have some canvases lying around. Let's have a little play around with oils again. So I sketched out my little drawing that I had in my sketchbook onto a bigger scale, and I usually do that by just sketching out the general big shapes of the items I'm drawing out, and obviously getting a lot of lead on my hand, obviously, an artist's mark. And yeah, it can be quite confusing to scale up a drawing, but as long as you start off by drawing the big general shapes, blocking in all of your items first, and then making sure that everything proportionally makes sense, and then adding details, that's how I usually go about doing it. So yeah, once I was really happy with this, I kind of started adding some more details with my pencil, erasing what needed erasing, and making sure that I had all the details sort of drawn out so that I could save time, I guess, when painting and stuff like that, and make my life easier for myself. And I haven't done like a still life painting or anything like that in a very long time, let alone with oils, so this was definitely like a little challenge for me. I then grabbed myself a hot cup of tea, and I actually did a little bit of like color testing and stuff on my iPad just to sort of make sure that I liked the color palette, the color story. And this is when I started adding paint to the canvas. And let me tell you something, the story of this video, the main point for everyone to take away from this video is to trust the process, because this painting was a journey. Okay, so I started off with acrylics. Okay, and I know I said that this is an oil painting, but trust me, I started off by using acrylics to lay down the base colors, or like the initial wash of all the colors onto my canvas, because obviously oils take a long time to dry and acrylics take very little time to dry. So I wanted to get as many colors and big blocks of color down as fast as possible, so that then I could go in and change any colors that I wanted to easily on top of it. And that's the joy of acrylics, is that you can layer very easily because they dry very fast. And as you can see, and as you will see, I changed my mind about the colors and the color palettes on this painting so many times, because my idea going in is that I wanted it to be very realistic. Obviously, I wanted it to be a still life painting, but I wanted to use very bright colors here and then, and using a lot of really cool color substitutions, because I've been really obsessed with this artist called Alai Ganuza. I'll link their channel in the description, but she's an amazing oil painter who uses a lot of really cool colors and has an amazing concept of color theory, and I wanted to test myself and my knowledge of color theory with this painting as well, and explore that a little bit. Like, as you can see here, I started adding some little groundwork, I guess, with some of the shadows on the fabric drape, and I'm using like a dark blue instead of using like a darker version of the color that I used for the fabric. And yeah, here I'm still using acrylics, by the way, because I'm still experimenting with colors and putting down all the details that have been, obfuscated by the acrylic paint. And I keep changing my mind about the background color, because obviously acrylics as well, if you don't know, when they dry a lot darker than when they are initially put on the canvas. So as my layers kept drying, I kept disliking the color that it was turning into, so I kept painting over it with different colors until I landed on a green that I actually liked. I wanted this sort of like sage pastel green that was kind of mossy but not like gross to look at. Very hard to describe, honestly, but I think I got there in the end. You will see. Here I started adding like some base colors to some of the items in the foreground as well, so some of the actual still life items. And again, ignore these colors because these are not the colors that are going to be in the final painting. I just really wanted to start blocking in colors and essentially making this a trial run with the acrylics. So I wanted to just kind of get myself comfortable with the composition and with the colors and the positions of the shadows and everything else with the acrylics, because I knew that I could go back in later and paint all over it again. And this was day one of the painting. And then the next time I stepped back into this painting, it was an evening painting session, so I'm sorry for the lighting being different, but as you can see, when I got back to this painting, I again hated all the colors because they had dried fully since the last time I painted this, and I was hating how they looked. And you're not really going to understand what the colors look like because obviously the lighting in the evening is a little different, but in person, I was not liking the colors at all. So I am yet again still using acrylics because I wanted to get the colors right before I stepped into oils. I wanted to make sure that I had a plan, I knew what was going on, and I was comfortable enough with this painting before stepping into a medium that I was not used to anymore, that I haven't used in a while. I hope that makes any sense, but yeah, so I went in and started adding different colors to some of the items and making sure that I'm actually following the color plan and the color palette that I had set out to use, because I feel like I went a little bit too crazy when I did my first pass at this painting with my acrylics. And this is again why I like to work with acrylics first, because it's very easy to completely just redo your work, paint over them, fix your mistakes as many times as you need without having to wait weeks for layers to dry, obviously. I was kind of getting a little bit more happy with the colors that I'm using here. Still not 100%, but I knew that what I needed to fix, I knew what I wanted to fix. So I kind of just went in with the other flat colors for the rest of the painting that were still blank. So I added, again, still with acrylics, added in some of the flats to the flowers and the leaves coming out of that little vase, as well as obviously the peach, the cup. And I kind of just did this until I was bored, honestly, because now I was getting the oil painting itch. I was like, I want to get into it with the oils, but I wanted to get obviously all of my flats done first with acrylics, and even adding a little bit of details here and there with the acrylics so that I had a base to work with, and so I didn't have to go in blind with my oil paints. I knew sort of where certain shadows went, certain highlights went, and I just kind of had to work with that plan. Of course, I was also working with a printed out version of my drawing next to me so that I could see what my plan was, and that was sort of it for my last acrylic pass, because the next time I got into this painting, we're getting into oils because I'm crazy like that. So I decided to get a fresh set of oils for this painting because my old set was disgusting and old, and I got myself a nice little palette of colors and decided to just dive into it. Honestly, I was really I kept just reminding myself to trust the process with this, because I knew from the get-go it wasn't going to be a perfect process painting, because I knew that I was not only painting a subject that I am not used to, you know, it wasn't a portrait, it was still life, and also I was using color techniques and color theory switches that I was not used to, so it was a lot of experimenting involved. So I kept reminding myself, the painting doesn't suck, you're just learning as you're going. So kept trying to remind myself of that. So I went in with oils, firstly starting off with adding some details here and there for me to follow later on. So adding some of the darker details to the flowers so that then I could have a cheat sheet, I guess, of where all the shapes were, where I needed to add highlights, where I wanted to add shadows. And this is kind of the process that I went with for the rest of the painting. So with acrylics, usually, and other painting mediums, you usually start off lighter and start darkening elsewhere. But with oils, obviously, can't really paint over the top of things. Everything is very blend focused, so you kind of add little patches of different colors in different areas and then you blend in between them. So a lot of people work from the other way around, so they start off with the darker areas and then keep getting lighter and lighter, or I don't know, there's a lot of different ways to work with oils, but this is the process that I was mainly going with, was adding in the darker areas so that then I could sort of blend those out into the midtones and then add in the highlights, because that's how I felt comfortable using them. So as you can see, I just started rendering out the flowers first because those were the things that I was the most the most worried about rendering and the least excited to figure out. So started off with the thing I was the least excited about so that then that was out of the way. And adding shadows to the table and everything like that, just starting rendering things so that things started making sense in my mind. And honestly, this is when I was starting to get really excited about the painting, because some of the areas here are starting to actually look like what I had in mind and what I had envisioned for this painting. Like the peach was starting to really give off the sort of painterly vibes that I was looking for, and some of the flowers were starting to, look like flowers. So starting to render these objects out really started to get me excited about the painting. So the next time that I got to work on this painting, I was feeling really excited, as I said, because I was starting to get into that flow state, like really understanding what I was doing, very exciting. And in this session, I mainly just rendered out this teacup over here, or this teapot, I should say. And I actually posted a full real-time process video of me rendering this teapot over on my Patreon, if you are interested in seeing that. It's like a non-sped up version, and also sharing my very detailed process of how I rendered this, because obviously rendering glass and rendering transparent glass with liquid inside it, especially when it's surrounded by other objects, there is a lot going on and a lot to think about when you're rendering something like this, especially with, the see-throughness of it all, the reflections, the shadows, and it's a lot. So I definitely explained my entire process very detailed in that video on Patreon if you are interested in seeing that. So I added all the details here to the teapot, making sure that I kept in mind all of the objects surrounding it and how those would interact with the shadows on the glass, and how that would also interact with the reflections of light coming out of the glass and inside the liquid, all those things. And I was working with a bunch of different reference images of different teapots with liquid inside them, and just studying them as I went along, and basically seeing how the liquid inside those teapots and the glass interacted with lighting, and trying to translate that into this teapot that I was rendering here, and using all those sort of quote-unquote rules to make this teapot look really realistic and look like glass, which is a tough thing to do. But in the end, I was actually really happy with how this teapot came out. I think adding these little lighting bits at the end is really when I started feeling it. I was like, oh my god, I'm doing it. It's happening. And I was really proud of myself. This teapot and the peach area of the painting ended up being my favorite part of the painting. I think I really did a really good job there, and I am very, very proud of myself. So yeah, let me know what you think of this teapot. Does it look good? Do you like it? Because I'm really proud of it, actually. Sort of like a red bush tea, I think, is what I'm envisioning for this tea. So here in the last pass at my painting, I, as you can see, added some bits here and there after work whenever I had some free time, and added some colors, some flats to the teapot, to the leaves, and to the rest of the flowers before I went in and rendered them fully. So here, as you can see, I am going in again with some different tones to the flowers, because I wanted there to be some sort of difference in the colors from the flowers and the draped fabric from the background. They were very, very similar in tone, and I wanted to create a little bit of a value difference between them. So I ended up making the tulips a little bit more yellowish and orange, and have a little bit of those tones in there, as opposed to just being pink, because I also wanted to add a little bit more yellow to the piece. It was, it had shades of green, shades of pink, and shades of blue and stuff, but it was really missing a little bit of that yellow to sort of balance it out, and because I wanted this piece to be very colorful, very bright, and full of color. So this yellow, I think, really, really helped with distinguishing the tulips from the background draped fabric. So yeah, I ended up just going in and rendering the rest of the tulips that I had left because I got bored of drawing tulips and ended up rendering everything else. But then I was like, oh, I gotta go finish them at some point. So that's what I did in this sitting here, which this was like on a Sunday. I just had a full day of painting. I had some cold tea and it was a really nice time, honestly. It was just a really good time and I was feeling really happy about this painting. I ended up rendering all of it actually on this day and I was really in the zone and really happy with how it turned out. And honestly, I was just so excited to see it fully dry so that I could varnish it. And yeah, so I set it aside for a few weeks after this and let it dry fully. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, when I was sure it was fully dry, all the oils were dry, it was time to varnish this painting. And I'm just using this like gloss varnish from Winsor & Newton because I really like the glossy look on oil paintings, and had a really thick flat brush as well. And just look at the difference of a glossy varnish versus like a non-varnished piece. It's like you just turn the saturation and the contrast up and it just brings back this like vivid, colorful, bright energy to the painting. It is insane. I always forget how crucial varnishing is to oil paintings until I varnish a painting. I'm like, oh yeah, this is necessary. This is very important. Because it just brings the painting to life, essentially, and it just really shows off all of your hard work. I went in with this flat brush, making sure I covered every inch of the painting with varnish, and then I didn't want any bits of thick varnish, so I went in and just did like a really light horizontal and then vertical scattering of the varnish, and this was it for my oil painting. Like I said, trust the process, because at the beginning I was really not feeling this painting. I thought about giving up a few times, but I trusted the process. I kept going and I am so happy with how it turned out. Like, for my first still life oil painting, I'm so proud of myself and I am definitely so inspired to do more of these. So let me know if you'd be interested in seeing more videos like this. I already bought a few more canvases, so I really hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you would like to see some more like real-time process videos and stuff on my Patreon, you can always sign up. The link will be in my description. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye!